How's everyone feeling this morning? Tired? Sluggish? A little? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to stand up. This talk is interactive, so be prepared for chaos. Stand up. Put your hands on your hips. This is called the power pose. If you've not heard of it, do this before any time that you have to do something that needs a lot of energy. Today is going to be a long day, so let's all power pose for a second. We got this. Long day of learning. All right, awesome. Thank you. Be prepared for more crazy. So before I get into who I am, I want to tell you about my story. I am from a super small town in northern Minnesota. And I finally made the move to Minneapolis, or at least a suburb of Minneapolis, about 4 years ago. When I did that for a lot of reasons. One of the main reasons was to be able to expand in tech. Before that, I was pretty much teaching myself how to code, freelancing, and really not working with a lot of other people. So I had no idea what I didn't know. So when I moved, I decided that I was going to go to every single meetup that I could possibly go to and meet every single person that I could possibly meet in the tech industry in Minneapolis. So that actually landed me in Girl Development. How many of you have heard of Girl Development? Awesome. So unlike the name, it is not for girls, it's for women, and it teaches women to code. So there's a variety of different classes that teach women to code. And I ended up TAing an intro to HTML class. So I was basically there for the instructor. When students had questions, I'd go help them get them through like semicolon issues or other things that they weren't able to see in their code. And so I did that, and after the class, the chapter leader came up and they're like, "Can you please teach the next class?" I was like, well, like, what is the next class? And so the next class was like the next level of intro to HTML and CSS, so kind of taking it up a notch. And I was like, I had never taught before. I had never done anything like that before. I had done a few presentations at conferences, but not a lot. But it was exciting to me. I had a lot of fun taking the class, and so I was like, fine, sure, like, I'll do it. And she's like, oh, by the way, there's no curriculum yet either. I was like, okay, cool. So I wrote a curriculum. I had been to the class, so I knew what they had already learned. I knew what they needed to learn still, and beyond that, of course, there's still a lot to learn. And put together the curriculum, and I taught the next class. And it was like the best feeling in the entire world. I had never felt so energized and like it was so fulfilling. It was just like, I just taught someone to code. Like, they can now write CSS because of me. And it was amazing. And so it really fueled my passion for teaching people to code in general. So since then, I have actually taught kids to code. I have done workshops on WordPress. I've done workshops on Drupal. I've done a variety of different training workshops because teaching others to code is so exciting and energizing and fulfilling. A little more about me. My name is Tessa Creasel. I'm a developer advocate at Pantheon. If you don't know what Pantheon is, it's managed WordPress and Drupal hosting. If you don't know what a developer advocate is, it means that I am out in the community, out doing things to make sure that people like you are successful on our platform. My background is obviously being a developer, as I probably alluded to when I was talking about teaching people to code. Instructor for Girl Development Minneapolis, we talked about that. Founder of Outspoken Women. Outspoken Women is an initiative to get more technical women to be public speakers. So if you know any women that are technical and are afraid of public speaking, please send them there because we're a great resource for that. Outside of that, I am in love. I'm actually more so obsessed with dogs. So if you have a dog and you want to talk about it, I can talk about it for hours. So that's your way in to have a conversation with me. I shoot archery and obviously very passionate about teaching others. If you want to reach out, all of this information will be on there later. But just so you know, TessaK22 pretty much all over the internet. So every social code platform, that's where you can find me. Share commentary, your comments, your thoughts as you're studying through this talk with the PHP Tech hashtag. I love to see those, and I appreciate them. All right, so we already stood up. I made you power pose. You're also going to be doing interactivity from a device that you have with you. You can do this on your phone or on your computer. If you go to, it's sl.do, and then when you do that, it's going to pop up and it's going to ask you for an event code. The event code is just PHP Tech. And in the beginning, we're not going to do much with this, but we're actually going to use this towards the end. There is also an opportunity for you to ask questions on there. So I like to give people the opportunity to ask questions without feeling pressured from the audience, not having others know what you're asking or knowing who you are. So they're very anonymous questions. You just pop them in there, and then when we get to the Q&A section of the talk, I'll just go down through the questions and answer them. Then there's also going to be some more, but I'll just give you a minute to get logged in there. Also, if you don't have a device, don't feel bad because I'm going to put you all on the spot anyways, so it'll be okay. All right, we're going to move on. There's another slide that has this. If you miss it, it's Slido. Event code is PHP Tech. All right, so before I talk about how and why and all the awesome things about mentoring, I want to explain to you why it's so important. I did a lot of research before I decided to give this talk. I wanted a lot of information to be able to provide why it's important and why it's really important to me. And so I started looking at job outlooks. I actually spend a lot of time, after getting involved with Girl Develop It, I actually spend a lot of time in the tech industry in Minneapolis with people from our local coding boot camps and as well as our colleges. I don't know how it got started, but somehow my name has been spread all over Minneapolis that I'm really good with junior developers. So it's been awesome and very exciting to be able to help them. The hardest part has been finding them jobs. No one is willing to hire someone that doesn't have an ounce of experience. And it's frustrating. And I understand, people want someone that knows how to do something, but at the same time, and they're not going to get there if we don't give them those opportunities. So in 2016, there was a total of 162,000 jobs. And so when I talk about these jobs, we're talking about development jobs in general. So anything that's a programmer or an engineer of some type with software or web. In 2026, there's expected to be 188,000 jobs. So obviously we see that just from here until then, those 10 years, we're going to increase the number of jobs that exist. 10% of the developers that exist today are going to retire over the next 10 years. The average age of a developer's retirement, which is exciting for us, is 55. They usually don't make it to 62 or 65 or to some of the older retirement ages. They usually retire. Either they get out of code because they're sick of having to constantly learn new things. I think we can all relate to that. Or they just move on to management, or they move on to doing something else. That's a huge chunk of people that are going to retire that we're going to lose, and especially considering we're having a huge increase in actual job openings. So how are we going to fill this, plus start to supplement even more developers that we're lacking with this huge loss that we're going to have? So in looking at job positions and different opportunities that were out there, I started to look at the number of years of experience that a position wanted for a job that they considered a junior developer. 60% of them wanted 2+ years of experience. I'm sorry, but after 2 years of experience, especially in the way that things change, I would consider you like a medium to almost senior level developer, especially if you're working in React or some of the latest JavaScript libraries. This is absolutely ridiculous. 18% of them required 1 year. 1 year is not as bad. I still feel like if it's a junior role, you don't have experience, at least not a lot of experience. And only 22% of them required no experience at all. I have personally gone through, and the companies that said that they don't require an experience, I have sent them an email and thanked them for their job posting because they are actually allowing people who do not have experience to apply for their job. So here's, I know this is probably really small, but I'll kind of give you the gist of it. Here is a junior front-end web developer role that I found on the internet. The top desired skills make a lot of sense. It's more around personality, but the desired experience kind of made me laugh a little bit. They want you to know about design. They also want you to know about the latest JavaScript frameworks. That all in itself, I'm not even experienced in that, and I'm like 10+ years into development. They want you to be knowledgeable on Git. Sort of understandable. They want you to know all the front-end languages and cross-browser compatibility, even though you haven't worked with cross-browser compatibility yet, which really takes you doing it to learn. They want you to know about IDEs. I don't know about you, but whenever I dig into a new IDE, it's like months before I finally figure out everything I need to know about it. They want you to know about agile software development. How are you supposed to do that unless you're in a team who's using agile software development? And then previous WordPress development preferred. That one's not so difficult. WordPress is pretty easy to dig into. When I looked at this, sure, some of these things are important, but these are not, someone who is a junior developer is not going to have these skills. If you were, let's say, try to think back to when you first started into development, maybe you're a couple months in, would you apply for this job? Raise your hand if you would. Yeah, I wouldn't. I would not feel qualified to apply for this job. And it's frustrating. How in the world are they getting this experience? Where's this coming from? Coding boot camps are doing as much as they can. Colleges are doing as much as they can, but they don't have all of these things in their curriculum. So be the change that you wish to see in the world. So all of us today need to vow to be the change that we can make in this issue. So as I walk through this talk, I'm actually going to break it up. So depending on what your situation is, whether you're a manager, whether you're a developer, whether you're a new developer, there's going to be different sections for you. So first section we're going to talk about is for organizations. So you can think of this maybe for your company or if you're a manager for your team. And we're going to talk about different things pertaining to that. So the first part about it is why you should hire junior developers. So if you're just a developer on a team, these are things that you can bring to your manager and say, this is why we should hire junior developers. Team morale. Mentoring is rewarding and good for team morale. Finding good people is hard. I would say in general, I've been responsible for creating teams, and it's really easy to find someone that you personally like or that personally fits a culture match. You know, maybe they're energetic and they're good with clients or whatever else it is that you're looking for. But it isn't so easy to find those people plus the skills that you want them to have. So find the right person and give them the skills that you want them to have. Passion is infectious. This is very true for me, and I hope that my crazy passion is pushing all out into you. But when junior developers join your team, they're full of excitement, and they're energetic, and they want to learn. And that makes the rest of you and everyone else feel the same way. You get energized by the people around you that are giving off those same types of feelings. New ideas and thinking. This one is probably, I would say, my favorite one, besides the amazing good feelings I get from teaching. Diverse teams are the most successful teams. I think any of you have probably heard lots of articles, lots of presentations on diverse teams and how important they are. When you bring in someone who's a new developer, that really does apply as a diverse person on your team. They're not familiar with the industry. They're not familiar with your company. They're going to come in with a lot of new ideas and a lot of just new thinking that's going to help you create and think of different ways to serve your clients or whatever it is that you're doing. All right, so you figured out why you should do it. How to get started. Write better job descriptions. I cannot emphasize this one enough. If you are willing to take a bet on a very new developer, put that in your job description. Then someone who is coming straight out of a boot camp or straight out of a school, or maybe they're only a few months in, will actually feel confident applying for your position. And to add to that too, I've got in the description here, focus on personality traits. If you want someone who is really just willing to learn, put that in the job description instead of saying, I want you to have 1 year of experience. Focus on the things that you might want from a cultural fit or from a team fit when it comes to who they are as a person. Create strategic partnerships. Partner experienced developers with your new developers that share similar goals and coding interests. So if you already have an experienced team that are going to help mentor these new developers that you're bringing on, try to find people that have common interests, maybe someone who is really excited about JavaScript as a senior dev, and then partner them with someone who's really excited about learning JavaScript as a new dev. Also think about things that might come to personal lives. So for me, being obsessed with dogs, if someone partners me with someone else who's obsessed with dogs, we're going to immediately have a connection because we're going to be able to talk about something that we have a shared interest in, and probably for a long time if she's as crazy about dogs as I am, or he. Do not require involvement. I can't emphasize this enough. If you as a manager want to implement a mentorship program, I think that's awesome, and I strongly encourage you to do so, but do not require every single one of your developers to do it. Some people are not comfortable teaching others. Some people are just not comfortable being in that type of relationship. They don't want the pressure, they don't want someone depending on them, and they're just not ready for that. Do what you can to have conversations with them, maybe include them in some group activities, and maybe over time that they will become excited about it. But ensure that you double check with your developers before you say, hey, I'm going to partner you up with a junior developer. Make sure that they're on board. You want it to be a good experience for both people. Managers are not mentors. I know that people, every time I give this talk, people push back and they're like, my manager's a great mentor. Your manager can be a really great mentor. My manager is a really great mentor in terms of my career, in terms of my individual job. But when it comes to this type of a relationship, you want your mentor to be someone that you can confide in. So as a junior developer, let's say you come in and you have like this really silly CSS question, and you feel like it's something that you should know because you went to a coding boot camp, whatever it is that you did for your education. You feel like you should know this question, but you don't. If you are in a situation where you feel like you should know it, you're not going to ask a manager that question because you don't want your manager to not think that you're prepared or experienced or knowledgeable enough to do that job. You want there to be a relationship where the junior developer can confide in whatever it is that they're feeling or whatever it is that they have questions in to whoever their mentor is. And so that's why I say that managers are not mentors. Sure, it can work. I know that it can work. But I really strongly encourage you to not partner a new developer with a manager. Open lines of communication. Ensure that there are methods in which that they can openly communicate with each other. So maybe you say that there's a Slack channel that is for developers to be able to pop questions in. Or maybe it's a once a week, there is like a coffee break that's an hour long that they can meet up, they can chat, the new developers can ask whatever questions they want. Whatever that works for your team, just make sure that there is some form of open communication so they know exactly how that they can reach out to others to get help. Track progress and make goals. As a manager or as someone who's leading this relationship, it's your responsibility to make sure that it is successful. So make sure that that the mentor and also the mentee are tracking progress, that they're trying to achieve goals, that there are things that the mentee wants to learn. There are times that they don't know what they don't know, so it's your job to make sure that they know what they want to know and that you help them get there. Build a program. This part is awesome. Once you hire a new developer and they've been with your team for a year or however long you feel comfortable, turn them into a mentor and hire a new developer. The great thing about this is that if your company is unique or you have a set culture or maybe you're doing a certain thing, if you're cycling through this program like that, you're going to be able to create developers that are really perfect for your team because you're picking them and you're teaching them the things that you want them to know. So turn it into a program. Keep doing it. Keep giving junior developers an opportunity to grow. All right, so that's all about the organization. So this is for developers. So you personally, as a developer, you might be on a team, you might be a freelancer, you might be doing it out of the goodness of your heart because that's what you care about doing. This is going to be all stuff for you. Okay, there's a slide missing here. It's supposed to say why you should do it. So why you should be a mentor. It grows your network. Like I told you my story with Girl Develop It, once I started teaching Girl Develop It classes, I learned about our coding boot camp. I learned about some of our college programs. I learned about some of the other things that we have going on in the tech industry. And before you know it, I had people reaching out to me, asking me to help mentor them or asking me to do certain things in the community. I got nominated for a Pioneer Woman in Minneapolis, and I don't know how it happened, and I don't know who did it. But it is something to do with growing my network and being out there. So there are lots of reasons why you should do it. But if you're looking to grow your network and be out there, and maybe eventually you want a new job or you want a better opportunity, getting out there is going to grow your network greatly. You'll also meet a lot of other developers, which are really great. I have a lot of new friends that are fellow developers because I was out there looking for mentors and doing this. It feels good. I actually have a term for this. It is called selfish acts of selflessness. Selfishly, I feel amazing, but selflessly, I am helping someone else. I am mentoring them. I am giving them the skills or the information that they need to move forward to become a successful developer. And it feels good. It forces you to step outside of your comfort zone. I know that there are a lot of people that, especially in this industry, that are very introverted. I am the complete opposite. If that wasn't obvious enough, I'm very extroverted, and I love talking to people. But that isn't always the case. Not everyone feels like that. And so this is a really great way to just step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Go to a couple meetups. A lot of times there's a lot of dev meetups you can go to. It's still a lot of really great information that you want to obtain. But there's other people that feel the same way. So it helps you kind of step outside of your comfort zone. And on top of that, there's usually beer. So if you like beer, go enjoy that. Master your own skills. Teaching means that you need to know your stuff. And don't feel like that you're not experienced enough, because you totally are. But the nice thing about it is that it'll require you to dig a little deeper. So when I first taught that Girl Develop It class, we were talking about CSS and color properties and all of that good stuff. And I was like, yeah, there's like 16 different color properties. And one of the students came back and she's like, well, the internet says there's like 148. And I was like, oh, there is? So between the time that like I did that, CSS3 came out with a whole bunch of new colors. And I was like, oh, awesome, you just taught me something. And as you're teaching, you're going to learn something new. They're going to help you, or you're going to see something that you didn't see before. So it helps you master your own skills. Their successes feel like your successes. This is by far I know we keep saying that, but this is probably the best part. I have a couple people that went through, so after I taught my first class at Girl Develop It, I ended up becoming a chapter leader. I ended up teaching a bunch of classes, really got very embodied with the entire chapter. I created a series that was like basically a front-end series where it was like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We talked about Git. We did web concepts that talked about like servers and domain names and hosting and all of that stuff. And we turned this into a series. And so I had students that would go through the entire series. And I have 3 students that are all now successful developers out in the industry. One of them is a React developer. One of them lives in a very, very, very far, like, small town in like basically almost Canada, in Minnesota. And she was working for an insurance agency and very unhappy with her job. She's a single mom. She had 2 kids, just trying to like get by in life, and now runs a successful like freelancing agency. And it is like the coolest thing ever. And then also someone who quit a biology job. She was a biologist making a significant amount of money and was ignited by learning how to code, and quit her job and went to school for coding and is now a successful developer as well. So those successes really feel like my successes because I helped to get them there. And we're now best friends. I talk to them all the time. They ask me random questions. If they're looking at different jobs, they'll say, hey, what do you think of this job description? Do you know anything about this company? What do you think would be a good fit for me? We've become friends, and not only do we talk about dev stuff, we talk about personal stuff too. We talk about dogs, of course. We talk about kids. We talk about everything that is in all of our lives, because now we have become friends. All right, so we figured out why. Now the big question is, where do you find these people that you can mentor? Colleges or schools, so universities, technical schools, a lot of them are coming out with coding programs, a lot like coding boot camps. Otherwise, they still have, obviously, their full programs for computer science and whatever else. Reach out to department heads, reach out to teachers, reach out to whoever to find them. There are tons of people that are willing to take your help. I also want to say, don't rule out high schools. If you really enjoy kids or like hanging out with kids, they are like the coolest people to teach how to code. I just taught a class, it was last year, of middle school kids, and it turns out they actually had to take the class, so it was an after-school curriculum offering. They had to take the class because they have to do so many credits of after-school curriculums, basically. Yeah, it was pretty great. This is a school that is in South Minneapolis, and I would say 85% of the population were Hispanic. And if you've ever been to Minnesota, has anyone been to Minnesota? Okay. we're lacking diversity greatly. And so to have a school that has that many of a different race was like very uncommon for Minneapolis. And so I think they were trying to do everything they could to, like, make them have a successful life beyond school. Anyways, they all hated it. Like, when they first came to class, they like hated me. They hated the class. They did not want to do it. They like basically sat there on their phones the entire time. I showed them how to get whatever the coding was that we were doing on the internet through FTP. It was like second class, and they were just frustrated. I'm like, okay, that's it. We're going to do something. Hopefully this changes things. We put code on the internet, and before you know it, they were all like excited. They came to class like the next week excited. They knew my name. They knew what I did. They wanted to know more. They wanted to know how they could become coders someday. And that was, to me, the most exciting, because obviously we all know we're lacking diversity, specifically women. I think that's pretty obvious in this room. And so if you can get more kids involved into coding, then we can help decrease the diversity problem that we have. So don't rule out high schools, public schools, whatever. Cold schools or boot camps, I think these ones are pretty obvious. There are a lot of boot camps out there. Minneapolis has their own one that is not a franchise or not spread. So that's the one I help the most. I know there are lots of other ones out there. Look for coding boot camps in your local community. I'm sure that there are probably a few of them. Local organizations or groups. So check Meetup. I think, does anyone go to like Meetup groups? I feel like if you're at a conference, you probably know about Meetup. Cool. So there's lots of different Meetup groups. Girl Develop It, obviously being focused on women. They really love having men allies as well, so don't feel like if you're male that you can't go help. Yes We Code is another one. Women Who Code is another women-focused one. There are quite a few out there, but I will say that there are more out there for women and less out there for men. So it's a little bit harder to dig into where to find them in terms of those groups. But hopefully each of your communities has something. Hackathons. This is actually probably the #1 way that I've met the most junior developers is at a hackathon. So a lot of hackathons are twofold, right? So most of the hackathons that I've done, it's for nonprofits. So I've built websites for nonprofits for free, which is also really great. And then the other side of it is that I've met a lot of awesome people. I've met a lot of experienced developers, but I've also met a lot of junior developers that were just trying to get out there in any possible way that they could. I just did a hackathon like a year ago in Minneapolis, and I met 3 different junior developers, and all 3 of those people, I helped them in every way that I possibly could, and they are all 3 hired at jobs now in Minneapolis, and they weren't before. So there are lots of really great ways to meet people at hackathons. Plus, they're fun. Conferences. We're all sitting in a conference right now. There is a likely chance that there is someone either in this room or at this conference that is a junior developer that is seeking a mentor today. So talk to people. Get out there. Get to know people. Figure out what they're here for. Figure out what they do. And offer to help them. All right, so we figured out why. We figured out where to find them. Now we should figure out how to be a good mentor. So tips for being a good mentor. Boost their confidence. Even the most experienced developer gets imposter syndrome. Has anyone here felt like they were an imposter even though they've been a dev for a while? Yep. I feel like that happens to me just about every single day. When I started at my role at Pantheon, I had no idea what containers were. I had no idea what Kubernetes was. And they're like, oh yeah, can you like learn this topic on continuous integration and talk about like deploying out to the containers? And I was like, no, maybe. And I eventually figured it out, but it's a roller coaster to learn those things. There's I know how to do it, I don't know how to do it, I'm not experienced. I think we've all been through the imposter syndrome. And I think it's important that we tell them that it is a thing and that we boost their confidence in every way possible. Guide their career path without telling them exactly what to do. So ask them questions like, maybe they're asking you about what kind of job or where should I apply? Ask them questions like, well, do you enjoy really fast-paced work, or do you enjoy to take your time and actually work thoroughly through whatever it is you're working on? Do you want to do PHP? Do you want to do, I don't know, mobile development? What is it that you want to do, and help guide them into one way or the other. I had someone who asked me, she was trying to consider an agency job versus a corporate job, And I asked her, like, what really gets you excited? Like, do you enjoy really fast-paced work, or do you enjoy a little bit slower-paced work, but being able to thoroughly work through things? And she's like, I definitely want fast-paced. She's like, I want to be learning things. I want to be doing tons of stuff. I don't want to be stuck doing one thing. And I was like, then you definitely need to look more at agency work and less at corporate work. Obviously, there's different examples to all of that, and there's different exceptions, but ask them questions that are going to help guide whichever question or where they want to go for their career path. Be available. This one is really hard, I think, for everybody. It's very specifically like hard for me because I have a problem saying no, so I say yes to everything and then I don't have time for anything. But be available to them when they need you, or at least be available to them when you say that you're going to be available. So if you say, hey, let's meet on Friday at 5 o'clock at Starbucks, be there. Don't reschedule. Don't cancel. Do what you say that you're going to do, and set actual expectations of when you have availability. Share resources with them. You don't know what you don't know. So share blog posts with them, share books with them, share conferences with them. Maybe you go to a conference talk and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really helpful. I think my mentee would really enjoy this. Share the video with them, share the slides with them. Give them the information that they need, because again, they don't know all the things that you know. Working coding examples. This one is huge. For me, that's actually how I learned best, was like looking at different coding examples. When I first started digging in, it was like long before meetups existed and all of these awesome websites that teach you how to code. And I would just use developer tools to like dig through a website and figure out what it was doing. Share coding examples with them and try to comment your code. So explain to them like, this is doing this, this is doing this, this is why I did this, or this is what this is doing. Seeing those coding examples and allowing them to be able to kind of tweak or edit those examples will help them learn how that's being constructed. Live coding sessions. Working on a project with them, or working on a project will help them think through one method versus the other. So if you're doing a live coding session, come up with an objective of where you want to get to and allow them to get there and walk through the process. So maybe they choose to go one route versus another route. Talk them through that. Don't say, you know, you shouldn't have picked that, or why'd you do that, but allow them to explain to you why they did that, and then in return explain to them maybe another route that they could have gone and which route or why they should do that. Live coding sessions will also give them a lot of confidence if you're allowing them and guiding them into the different decisions that they're doing. Plus, you can sit at home and do it. Code reviews. These are huge. These are huge in general, whether you're working in a team, whether you're working with a mentee or a junior developer, whatever it is that you're doing, code reviews can be very helpful in terms of personal growth. Like you yourself might be able to see code that you're like, oh wow, I did not know that we could do it this way. That's interesting. Or maybe it's a way for you to find something and say, hey, I really like what you did here, because we never want to tell them they did something wrong. I really like what you did here, but have you thought of doing it like this? It gives you opportunities to see their code and encourage growth without actually telling them that they did something wrong. Never tell them they did something wrong. That's a huge decrease in confidence, and the idea is for you to be boosting their confidence. So you want to help them and guide them, and don't do anything to decrease that. Lead a study group. So if there isn't a meetup in your area, maybe you should start one. Or maybe you should find a group of people that want to be mentored and lead a study group. The great thing about a study group is that you're helping more than one person at one time. So power in numbers. All right, so we learned about how to be a mentor, where to find them, why you should do it, things about your company. So now these are tips to be a good mentee. So if you are a junior developer and you're looking for a mentor, these are going to be tips to be a good mentee. If you are a mentor or want to be a mentor, these might be really great tips to share with your future mentee. Set expectations. So before you kickstart your relationship, set expectations. I think this works on both sides. So as a mentee or as a mentor, set the expectations of your availability, set the expectations of what you want to learn, maybe what you want to teach. Make sure that the other person knows what is expected of that relationship. Be respectful of their time. Most mentors are volunteers. I don't get paid for any of the mentoring that I do. I do it just because I enjoy doing it. But be respectful of their time. I have a lot of stuff going on too, and so if I have a mentee that is constantly pinging me and asking me different questions, it's really hard to sustain that relationship when I have a lot going on, and they're going to begin to feel like I'm ignoring them or I'm not being helpful. So make sure that you're respectful of their time, but also set those expectations. Come prepared with an agenda. Use your time wisely and come prepared with questions. So as a mentee, know what you want to learn. Maybe you get some advice from your mentor. You guys talk about what you want to learn, but come prepared with an agenda each time that you meet. Tell them, okay, last week we talked about whatever it might have been. Maybe it's React. This week I want to talk about how to dig into that, or maybe it's whatever it looks like. Make sure you come prepared with an agenda. Mentors are volunteers. It's super important to remember that most mentors are volunteers. If you're in a company and a company hires a junior developer, that's very different. Obviously, you're working for a company, you're getting paid, they're getting paid. But if you're finding someone outside in the community, just remember that most mentors are volunteers, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Own your learning. Your mentor can provide you with great information, but like we talked about before, come prepared with an agenda, know what you want to learn, create those goals and expectations so that you're responsible for the things that you learn. If you don't learn it, it's because you didn't ask your mentor to teach you it. Express your appreciation. Everyone likes to feel appreciated. So if you have a mentor that is dedicating time to you, they're teaching you things, they're showing you things, tell them that you appreciate them. Help others achieve their dreams, and you will achieve yours. This is very true. All right, so we're going to pop over to Slido now. I'm just going to pull this up quick. Whoa. All right, so there should be a first question that comes up on there. It says, what option best describes you? It's fun watching these. All right, I think everyone's in. Nope, there's more. I was really sad when I saw I need a mentor, and you'll see why in just a second. That it was at 0. It's increasing. Okay, so I'm a manager looking to implement mentorship with my team. That seems to be the largest. If you chose this, please stand up. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I think it's super important that we do this. So you guys can stay standing up unless you feel pressured. So I am a mentor. Can you please stand up? Awesome. In just a little bit, I'm going to ask you how you created mentorship relationships, and those are going to be important. Okay, so I'm going to skip one. If you said that you needed a mentor, please stand up. I think was it only one? Or is there someone hidden? Okay, so the people that were already standing, there's 2 new people that stood up in the back of the room. I want you all to look at each other and know who they were and talk after this is done. One of you can likely help the people that are looking for a mentor and create that relationship today. Okay, you can now sit down. All right, so if you wanted to be a mentor, now I'm going to make you stand up. Okay, awesome. So the people that are already mentors, you should talk to these people also and explain to them or help them get into a situation where they can mentor other people. Help them get to where you are today. All right, you guys can sit down. Thank you. I know that's a little stressful sometimes to stand in the spotlight. All right, so we got one more question here. So for those of you that are already a mentor, and this is an open text question, where have you successfully partnered with a mentor or a mentee? kind of breaks apart some of the phrases, so it looks a little silly when you see it on the screen, but it sounds like at work, community college. Does Blue and Ridge go together? Yes, okay. What is Blue Ridge? Okay, awesome. Current job. So it looks like a lot of people are finding people at work. So if you're not a mentor right now, maybe talking to other people inside of your company. Maybe you know something about certain languages. Maybe you've got a front-end developer that wants to learn PHP, or whatever that looks like. Reach out to those people. Maybe they want to learn something, or offer to teach them something. Offer to do a lunch and learn at work, or whatever. Figure out who it is that might be within your company that might be looking for a mentor. Oh, there's like a whole bunch now. I hate that they break it apart because it says Chick Days Rocky Mountain. Yes, we could do like a Mad Libs with these. Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Right. Yeah, I totally agree. It, I can only imagine. So can I ask why you thought that they weren't going to be developers? Sure. Yeah, agreed. I think a lot of us do that though. Like, and I've done that myself as well. Like, when I first taught a class of kids, essentially, they were like middle school age. I had people that like they, for the most part, I felt like all of them kind of knew what they wanted to do one day. Some of them wanted to be like, a lot of them wanted to do things in like marketing or whatever else. And I was like, oh, well, these aren't going to be my future developers, but I'm still going to teach them how to code. And I realized that like towards the end of the class, a lot of that changed. A lot of them were like, you know what, I kind of want to dig into something, at least something that is going to give me an intro level of coding. And for me, I was like, shoot, like I shouldn't have put them in a box. I shouldn't have put them in that situation where I personally said, oh, they're not going to be coders someday. I was like the kind of kid that if your VCR was broken, somehow I figured out how to fix it, or like I would fix, yeah, VCRs, that makes me sound really old when I say that. Or like computers, I'd have someone be like, oh, I have a virus on my computer. I'd be like, oh, cool, I'll figure it out. Like I would just figure out how to fix it. And then I went into restaurant management, like nothing tech related at all. I went into business management, specifically in hospitality. And my dad kept telling me like, why are you not doing something in tech? Why are you not doing something in tech? And I was like, because I don't want to do anything in tech. And it took me like going through a lot of technical things that I was doing in my job, putting in a new point of sale system to realize, shit, my dad's right. Why am I not doing anything in tech? And I think that a lot of times it just takes us to give them the foundations, at least like you said, just a little bit of information to realize how cool it is, or give them that aha moment. So for me, the students, once they realized they could FTP to the internet pretty quickly with a single HTML file, that was like their aha moment. They're like, whoa, I can make the internet in like a matter of minutes. So just giving people that experience so that they can decide for themselves and not having us put them in a box and say that they can't. Okay, cool. So I'm going to move on to the questions now. There are a couple questions in here. So if you haven't asked a question yet, feel free to pop them into the questions area, and then they just show up on my phone. So the first one here is, when hiring a junior developer, what can we do to ensure that they meet a base level of competency? I think that's super important, right? Like, you don't want to hire someone that doesn't know anything. You also want to hire someone who maybe doesn't have experience. I would say that that really depends on the position that you're hiring for. If you're willing to just hire a developer and maybe they don't need to know PHP, maybe they don't need to know whatever it is that your company is building, but you want someone that has the ability to work through problems. Give them problems, and maybe they don't have to be coding problems. Maybe they can be, here's a hypothetical situation with some fake people trying to solve a problem, or there's probably tons of examples on the internet. Give them a problem and see how they work through a problem. Because I think that a lot of our coding skills relate to problem solving, getting through the issues that you find, trying to figure out what might be wrong, and seeing how they work through problems. In terms of actual coding competency, junior developers, because it is really hard to get into jobs, for the most part, are going to be pretty eager to provide you with just about anything that you want. So maybe letters of recommendation from the code school that they went to, or maybe ask them to put a website on GitHub. If they haven't worked with Git before, send them so there's like a try.github.com. It's like just a tutorial to show you how to use Git. Whatever it is that you think is going to be most important for you to be able to see that they can do some of the things you want them to do. If they're applying for a developer role, obviously they have some knowledge. They either went to a coding boot camp, they taught themselves, or they went to a university. So work through some of the things that are going to be important to that job, but maybe not necessarily the code. If I can give you one tip, do not force them to code. All right, I know this is probably subjective, but how do you define no experience? I feel a difference between 4-year versus a boot camp. I think that really depends on like what you're looking for. Most boot camps focus on more front-end development things. That's not always the case, but most of them are usually like a very brief HTML, CSS, and then they dig into some type of JavaScript framework. So if that's not something that you need, maybe those applicants are not the ones you're looking for. There is a coding boot camp that's in Minneapolis that's actually at our university that does dig into more backend languages. I think they learn Java. So I think it really just depends on what you're looking for. Coding boot camps, I know that a lot of people rule them out, but you have to remember that the people that are in there have given up everything in their life for either 3 to 4 to 5 months. They've paid a pretty decent amount of money. And they're not able to work because they're so pressured with all the things that they need to learn. Like, they're willing to go through this somewhat very painful process to learn how to code. They are very ambitious people if they make it to the end and they're able to successfully get a certificate or successfully create a project. Most of them have like a demo day at the end where they have to create some kind of a project. Go to those demo days. Check out the projects that you see. Don't rule them out just because they didn't go to a 4-year school. They're ambitious and they want to learn. In terms of a 4-year school, obviously if they're a computer science degree, you know that their foundational information is likely fairly good. If you are not sure on their actual skill sets, maybe you can reach out to professors or other people for letters of recommendation. But I know that it really kind of depends on your exact role and how to narrow down exactly what you're looking for. Explore phpmentoring.org for mentors at all levels of your career status. That's amazing. I did not know that that existed. Thank you for sharing that. When do you know the relationship isn't working? What do you do? You're getting frustrated with your mentee. I've definitely been there. I think that there is a video, and it's hilarious, and if there is time, we should watch it because it's funny. But there's a BuzzFeed video out there, and I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something about like, I don't want to go to your party. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Okay, so it's quite funny. So there's 4 people, they're in a room, and the one person's like, hey, I'm having a party this weekend, can you all come? And the one person's like, oh no, like my dad's coming from out of town, I gotta show him around. And the other guy like had some other excuse. And the girl is sitting there and she's like, oh no, I'm not gonna be at your party. And they're like, oh, why? Like, what's going on? She's like, I just don't wanna go. And they're like, what? What do you mean you just don't want to go? Like, do you not want to come to my party? And it turns into this huge thing. And at the end of the video, like, the value out of it is that a lot of times we're not honest with each other enough. We don't tell each other exactly what we're feeling. Instead, we'll make up reasons as to why we can't do things. So everyone else in that group made up reasons as to why they couldn't go. And she was just like, I don't want to go. Like, I have other stuff I want to do. I want to hang out at home. I don't want to come to your party. And I think that we need to be more honest with each other when that, especially in these type of relationships. They can be very difficult relationships if you're not on the same page. So being honest, maybe they're pinging you all the time, and maybe you say, hey, I really want to help you, but I have a lot of stuff that I have going on in my own life. Can we set aside times that we can actually have this conversation? Or can we set aside times where, like, you can ask me what you need to, or maybe we get together during these times? Or can you create a Google Doc of all the questions you have, and when I have time to get to them, I'll come to this Google Doc and I'll answer these questions when I can. So just be honest with them. Like I said, we're not doing that enough in everyday life. So just have that conversation even if it is difficult. And watch that video because it's really funny. All right, I'm the sole source of developing information at my job and help train students to code. How can I be the mentor and the manager in a way that works for everyone? I think that it's doable. It can be done. It's just, I think that you need to put out there that you are okay with their failures. Like, make sure that they know that them failing is not a bad thing, that everyone fails, that everyone goes through that, and that they can come to you with whatever they need to. I think being a good manager in general, if you are a good manager, you're allowing people to feel very comfortable with you. Like, I feel like I could tell my boss anything. I mean, literally anything. And just getting to that point where they feel that way. Make sure that they know that no matter what it is that they have to tell you, no matter what it is that's going on, that you're going to be there for them as a mentor, but also as a manager. So outside of the awesome sponsors that you should definitely go talk to, everyone's talks are on Joined In. If you haven't done that yet, your other speakers would love feedback. I would love feedback. But I've also uploaded my slides to that URL, which my slides has obviously all of the bullet points that we talked about. So thank you for coming to the first session of the day with me.